Welcome back to training video 3. In this video we are going to talk about decision making and functions in Python programs. Okay, so as the word suggests, decision making. So there is some decision to make based on a condition here. So sometimes when we are coding, when we are writing logic for a program, we want to make a decision based on a condition. Okay, so for decision making we have some constructs that we are going to use. I am going to create a new project, PyDev project, and I can call it module 3. Okay, so on the website, as you see, module 3 is for decision making. So correspondingly I have named the project here, and I say next and finish, inside which I'm going to create a PyDev module directly. I'm not creating any package as in the before in the module 1 and 2 I did. Okay, so the name of the file, I will say decision making. Okay, so for decision making we have Python if, else and else if statements, right? So let's look at them one by one. Okay, so the first thing is if, and then you have to give a condition. So some expression will follow after if, and the value of the expression can either be true or false, and based on that condition we want to do some steps further, right? So an if statement in Python will take an expression. Now for example, I will give the expression like this. So say a variable, I have a variable which has the value say 0. Okay, and I will say if a is less than 1. Okay, so this is an expression that it will evaluate to either true or false. So the statement will end with a colon, and then what will follow is what you want to execute as if the condition is true. If the expression is true, then the block of statements under if will be executed. Okay, so you have to remember to indent the statement in block equally. So for example, if this is here and at one single tab, at the space of single tab, I'm writing the next block which needs to be executed if the condition is true. So I will say condition a less than 1 is true. Okay, it's very simple, right? So there is a variable that has a value, and then I evaluate this expression. It will result in either true or false. If it is true, it will execute this statement. I'm going to execute it now. It says condition a is less than 1 is true. So a, the value is 0 and 0 is less than 1, so it becomes true, and hence it comes in this state, on this statement. Suppose I change the value to 2, okay, or 1. 1 is not less than 1, right? So it is not going to print anything. Okay, so this is how you can use if statements for making decisions in your program. Now for example, if this is true, it will go here. If it is not true, you might want to execute some other statements. So then you have else. So else colon, and then you can print condition was false. Okay, let's save it and then right click, Python run, condition was false. So it goes over here. A is not less than 1, which makes it false. So it does not go there and goes into the else statement. Now I have only added one statement in the block, in the if block, if it is true. You can have as many statements. Okay, you can. So I'm just taking an example, easy example, where I'm printing some strings. Otherwise you can have any logic in place. Okay, but you have to make sure that the indentation, this block this is like one block, you can see it from the spacing here, and this is one block. If you do this, just one space here and there, it will result in error. Okay, it will show you inconsistent indentation. Okay, so you cannot have one space extra or one space less, right? So you have to have it very properly here, indent them equally. So this is if block and this is else block. So the entire block will be executed if the condition is true, or if it is false, the entire else block will be executed, right? So basically you note that this will return a boolean. A boolean is a data type. Boolean is a data type that returns true or false. So always this expression is going to return you a boolean true or false, based on which the blocks will be decided whether to go here or here or here. Okay, so let's see what if we have multiple else. Okay, can you have multiple else's? It's already showing some issue, right? So you can have only one else corresponding to if statement. Okay, that's one thing to keep in mind. Let's have one more condition here. So if 1 equal 1, so the equality is evaluated with two equals. Okay, when you are equating two numbers here, you have to use double equal sign. So 1 equal 1, it will return true, and hence it will print. So if you have single statement to execute as part of if block, then you can have it in one line also, like this. Okay, so it goes in true. So we've seen if statement and if else statement. You can have nested if statements also, which is to implement further checks under an if statement. Okay, so if one okay, let this remain, we'll work over here. If a is less than 1, else if you want to do that, then you'll have elif. Okay, elif if a equals 0, say for 0 you want to have a special block, and then else. Okay. Hello 0. Okay. So let's execute it. So it comes, okay, I'll make it 0 here. Save before running. So it's less than 1, it goes over here, and inside it again I want to check, sorry, this has to be here, I'm sorry for this. So it's further check, right? You can even have another if, not else if, right? If indentation is important, and this is okay. So this is like one block, this is one block, and else is corresponding to this if, right? So it says hello 0, and then it comes, this is also true, so this is also true, and this is also true. For this particular expression, the block is here which it prints, and for this is also true, so it prints this also, right? Hello 0. So a is less than 1 and a is 0, so both conditions are true. So if you have to have multiple checks, so you can have multiple if statements within an if statement. You can go to any level of such checks. So this is about simple decision making. Now there are times when you want to execute a particular statement many number of times, say 100 times, 1000 times, okay? So you don't have to repeat that statement 100 times in your code, okay? That is where the loops come in picture. So as the word says, it will loop over a statement some number of times that you tell it to loop for, okay? So suppose you have to write a statement, say 10 times, okay? So you can use loops. So you have two kinds of loops in Python, for loop and while loop. We'll discuss each of them separately, one by one, okay? First we go with the while loop. While loop will iterate over a particular condition. So it will check a condition, so you will have while, and then you will have a condition to check, right? If the condition is true, I'm sorry, this is small w here, so that's why the keyword is turning to blue, right? If the condition is true, just like we have this condition here, so I will use the same thing. Maybe b equals 9, and if b is less than 10 colon do something, okay? So this do something will come here, some statement here, maybe print b, okay? So this condition will be evaluated. If it is true, it will go do the statement. Once again it will come back. If it is true, it will go come back, do the statement. So until this condition is false, it will continue to execute the block within itself, right? So it is dependent on this particular statement whether to execute or not, which means that in the given block, the value, the condition can be manipulated, like b, the value of b can be changed. So if you forget to do that, okay, if you do not change the value of b, it will remain, it will always be true, and hence it can go into an infinite loop, right? Let me just execute it and run it for you. Okay, so B is 9 and it will evaluate it. 9 is less than 10, true, it will print B and then add 1 to it. Then again go back with the new value of B and compare. Okay, like this it will go on. So run as. So it prints 9. In the next iteration it becomes 10 and 10 is not less than B. So it stops the loop, right? For example, if I make it 4, from 4 till 10 it will do many iterations. So let's run it. So it goes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. After 9 it checks for the value, then it becomes 10 and it loops out. Okay, it breaks from the loop. Suppose I do not add anything like this. I do not increment the value of B. Let's see what happens. Okay, it's not supposed to be done. Actually it will go in infinite loop. It will never end because this situation will always be true and it will continue to print B until you stop it. So in such cases, when you have this flawed code, when you have such kind of error, how can you stop the program? Say it's continuing to print 44444 all the time. Okay, you can press Ctrl C and stop it from the CLI, or you terminate it from here. Okay, so n number of times it is printing 4 because we are not doing any manipulation to this variable, and hence this condition is always true. So you have to be very careful when you are executing, when you are implementing your while condition, that you have to somehow make sure this condition ends sometime. Okay, you cannot make it go into infinite loop. That's a flawed condition. So if you have multiple statements here, so if I say B plus B equals B plus 1 and then I print B again, the new B, right? If you have multiple statements under while, you have to make sure that they are intended equally, just like before we did. Okay, so indentation cannot have a goof up here. It will result in syntax error. Okay, so that goes without saying for everything, for loop, for functions, for any kind of code on the program, right? So let's run as. So here it prints 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7 because we are printing the incremented value also as part of the block under while, right? Okay, just as the if has else block, similarly a while loop can also have else statement. Okay, now when the condition becomes false, when this condition becomes false, that is when the block under else will be executed. So for example, I have else here and I want when this is false, it has to print condition false, now I am in else. Okay, I'm removing the two print statements. I'm happy with one, right? Run as this. So it goes until 9. When it becomes 10 and 10 is not less than 10, it becomes false, it comes into else statement. Okay, it does else, executes else. We can have a special condition also checked inside while. So suppose I want to break the loop on condition when B becomes 7. So I'll say when B equals 7, okay, then you break from it, break from the while loop. So I'll simply write break. So it will go until 6 and when 7 it will break. In that case it will not print else. Else will be printed only when this is becoming false. Okay, so break can be used, break is a keyword, can be used to exit from the loop even if the condition is true, exit from the loop on certain condition, right? So this is about while loop. Now we have another kind of loop, as I said, for loops. We'll see that now. The functionality is pretty much the same. It can iterate over a sequence. Um, it can iterate over a condition and over a sequence of items. So there are special data structures, there are special constructs like lists, dictionaries, or maybe strings also. It can iterate over each character of a string also. So structure for the loop is, for loop is like this. For, say I have a statement, I have a variable here C. So C in C is a counter here, okay, and I give this range, say 6. So what this range function will do, it is going to create a sequence of numbers here, okay, and the sequence will be here. I will just mention over here, range 6 will result from 0 to 6 minus 1, that is 5. 1 2 3 4 5. So the entire range of numbers falling between 0 and 1 minus whatever number you give here. So from 0 to n minus 1, this particular range of numbers it will make a list of, and C will iterate over each of them. First it will take the value of 0, then 1 2 3 on each loop, okay. Now let me print just the value of C here. So I'll say print C, okay. Just to identify where is it printing, so I can say I am in for loop. So after I'm in for loop, C takes the value of 0, then 1 2 3 4 5, okay. So that's how your for loop structure for loop is, okay. We are using range function here. You can also have some lists in place. Though we haven't seen this data structure, we will see it in the next module, but just for brief, for the purpose of usage here, I am mentioning. So this 1 2 and 3, this is a list where the 3 numbers, okay. Now C can by default iterate over each value in the list, right. Print C. This is iterating over a list, okay. 1 2 3. Similarly, there's one more data structure, dictionary, that can also be iterated over. So I'll just use this. This is for dictionary, and instead we will just have, sorry, we'll not take this here, we'll take it further on. I can show you how it iterates over a string. So suppose I have a string, this strings, this is a strings, okay, end it with a colon and print C, the counter. Okay, So it will pick up each value, each character from this string and iterate over it. Okay. So this is like simple for loops. You can also have nested for loops. Now for example, I want I in range, say I can start the range also. It's not, if I don't give anything, it will start from 0. I can say range 3 comma 7. Okay, and inside which I can have another loop, say j is the counter in range I can use the same counter, say. Okay, so depending on the first value, the second counter will depend on the first counter. Okay, so this is the purpose of nested loops. Say I'll just print a star here. So what you can use is you can have a breakpoint here, and you can watch over these values to see how this function is being called. Okay, how, sorry, not the function, how the value of I is being incremented, what happens here, what is the value of j. Okay, all of it you can watch with the help of breakpoints, and watch. Instead of run as, you use debug as. Okay, so when you use debug as, it is going to come, the flow is going to come on the first breakpoint. It will wait, stop. And here on the right side you have this debugger perspective, where all the variables that are being used in the current run are going to be listed here. So A, B, C, and you can watch more variables like I, for example. Then you can right click and say watch. So the value of I and the value of j, etc. I'll put another breakpoint here, and when you click on this resume, which is F8, you will come to the next variable and see the I is here, and then again 1. So in the first iteration, the value of I is 3. Okay, starts from 3, and the value of j is dependent on value of I, range I. Range I will give you range 3, that is 0, 1, 2. Right? You can have a watch on this particular 3. So range I value is 3, it will give you 0, 1, 2, these values. Okay, so that many times it will print the star. So you can continue to watch this value. This is the way to debug and see how this is behaving. Now the value of I is 4, and j will range from 0 to 4. Okay, I value of I is 4, j is 2, 3, and then break. And now the value of I is 5, so j will go from 0 to 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is a good way to see how these nested loops, they behave. You can remove the breakpoint and execute. It will execute and terminate when it gets over. Okay, so this is terminated. Just as you used break in while loop, you can use it for for loop also. So similarly, when you put a break statement in the body of the for loop, the loop will stop executing when that condition is matched. For example, I can say if C equals R, okay, when C reaches R, that case I want to break. Okay, so I'm going to comment this line, this block, sorry. So it will go only till R. So when R is met, the condition is true, this breaks the for loop. Similar behavior was seen in while loop. So the statement break behaves exactly the same way as it does in while, it does in for the for loop also. Okay, imagine a scenario where when it is R, for example, when it is R, when C is R, we don't want to print R, but we want it to continue to the next loop. Okay, so in that case, what will we use? Break is definitely breaking it out from the loop. But when it is R, we want to only skip the statements after continue, and we want to shift to the next item in the sequence. Okay, in that case we will use continue. Now we will take this out, and if such a such condition is there, then you continue. That means break from the loop. Don't execute the statements further down. Okay, let's see the behavior here. So it prints S T I N G S. It does not print R, because when it comes to R, we say continue. That means rest of the statements ignore, do not run them, and go to the next item in the sequence, which is I. So it will go back, execute the further code in the loop, but the statements that are following continue will be skipped for that particular iteration. Okay, that's the use of continue. Then we have one more statement, that is past statement. We will see that also. We have seen break, continue, and the next is past. These are special statements that work in tandem with loops and conditions. Okay, so when we use past statements, we basically use them to implement stubs. Now what do we mean by stubs? So when we have a particular case, for example, I write a for loop here. So I in, say, strings, but I haven't yet implemented the logic. Okay, but I want it to be there. I will implement it later. So I can just use as pass, which means that I am yet to write the code. I'm yet to write the logic under this for, but right now I'm not, I'm just leaving it blank. Okay, so we place this pass statement inside it, and it will take it as the right code. Okay, if we don't do that, if we leave it like that, it will show you an error. Okay, it will expect something here, you see. So what you can do is you can just say pass, and it will take it as a full-fledged working operational for loop. It will not throw an error. Similarly, we can use it for functions also. Now we'll come to the next topic is function. If we do not want to implement the functions, just keep them like that, and later when we want to insert some code, then also we can use pass. So it is just like when you want to implement stubs. Stub is like, this is a placeholder, but the working code is not yet implemented. Okay, so that's the usage of pass. So that's about conditions and loops, decision making and loops here. Let me rename. This is decision making and loops both here. I can use underscore. Okay. In the next part, we will see functions and some built-in functions. So we are going to cover, we have seen all of this. In the next part, we are going to see the functions, how to create and call a function, date and time inbuilt functions, and the difference between global and local variable.